Okay, welcome to our 8th webinar, which is about gratitude, Modim Anachnu Lach. It is a really interesting topic with a lot of framework for deep discussion. As I was saying, I've taught it a few times, and it's amazing, just amazing the things that come up. So we'll start with the agenda. Did anybody do Israel last month, and do you want to talk about it at all?
I ended up missing it. I ended up with the stomach flu, so I had to reschedule my group, but our evening group met, and they actually said it wasn't as energetic as they were expecting it to be.
Interesting, because it's such a difficult topic nowadays. It can be controversial. People sometimes want to be very, like, they just don't want to offend anyone, or they have very strong feelings. So it can go either way. And although it's supposed to focus on your personal connection to Israel, a lot of people have very political personal connections, and it makes it a very difficult topic, which is why I was asking about it.
Yeah. I can't add to it because I missed it.
Right. And I also missed it. So unfortunately I can't add to the conversation.
Right, and I don't see Sandy typing anything, so we will go and start with our themes, because this is a really, really good topic that we're about to talk about. So our themes. Psychological studies have shown that feeling and expressing gratitude are important components of a happy, balanced life. There are elements in Jewish tradition that can help us to be aware of our blessings and to express gratitude. And expressing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring that there's pain and hardship in the world. It means making a daily effort to see that along with the difficulty, there's also good in life that's worth celebrating. So later on in the webinar, we are going to discuss how being grateful can actually improve your health. And I found this to be one of the really compelling reasons to study the text that we're going to study. I have to tell you that when I was doing this with my group a few years ago, we kept a gratitude journal, and there was a woman whose husband was undergoing chemo. Thank God he's okay now. But she had such interesting things to be grateful for. She's a person with an amazing spirit. And one of the things that I don't know, just stuck with me, she was spending a lot of time in the hospital, and she was grateful for being outside and feeling the sun when she could.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it just, I don't know, for some reason, every time I think about this, I look at that, and I mean, we're still friends, and she's an amazing, upbeat person. But to me, that's a real example of finding good, even when everyone knows that, you're going through a tough time.
Right.
So.
Good for her.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's just terrific. She's right now crocheting scarves for people with cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, she's just terrific. She's a very happy, upbeat person. Very
nice. That's who we want in our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, and her husband's doing fine, which is good. It's been like 2 years, and so thank God he's okay. Okay, so let's look at our gratitude quotations. We have 2 slides full of them. And before I read them, one of the things I want to say, there's a good way to do this. You can get started with this session. Post these quotations around the room and ask participants to read them to themselves or out loud. And after reading the quotes, the participants can select the quote that most speaks to their understandings of the value of gratitude, and then stand next to that quote. And then ask them to discuss why they chose that quote with others who are standing near it. Or if they're by themselves, think of the reason they chose that quote. And then they can discuss the reasons, share the reason why they chose that. I did this with a group of WRJ women at their conference. So I had 60 people doing it, which is different than our groups. And I had them stand for each quote. And I have to say, it was amazing just to see why people chose what they chose. So, it's an opening the door to a really interesting, personal, and meaningful discussions. So let's read them out loud, and then we can see which ones mean something to us. Because of my wonderful voice problems, could I ask someone else to read? I'm doing much better, I gotta say, and Monday I go to the doctor to find out why I can't talk.
That'd be great to start.
Okay. Should we want to go back and forth, Donna?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. The first one is there's only one surprise, to be alive. And that may be forgotten daily, if daily not remembered.
The surest way to suppress our ability to understand the meaning of God and the importance of worship is to take things for granted.
How true.
Mhm.
Indifference to the sublime wonder of living is the root of sin.
Rabbi Meir used to say, it is incumbent on each person to bless God in 100 blessings daily, which is from the Babylonian Talmud, Menachot 43b. Whether we recite one bracha or 100 brachot each day, the experience can heighten our awareness of the wonders in our daily lives and help us to respond to them with gratitude.
Who is rich? He who is happy in what he has, as it is said, when we eat the labor of your hands, happy will you be, and it will go well with you.
Gratitude rejoices with her sister Joy and is always ready to light a candle and have a party. Gratitude doesn't much like the old cronies of boredom, despair, and taking life for granted.
To spend our lives enthusiastically acclaiming the wonders of the world is unnatural. Yet, if we never acknowledge the good things that are ours, we are ungrateful, and we can become deadened to an awareness of life's precious gifts. Reciting a bracha helps to restore the balance.
So it's really interesting. As you can see these quotes, and as we go on in the webinar, you'll see that all of the aspects of these quotes are covered in our discussion. But this is a good way to find out which speaks the most to you.
Mm-hmm.
I might go first just to get us started. I love the idea of gratitude having a party.
Yes.
Just because I like the picture it paints in my mind. Although honestly, I think the one that speaks to me most is who is rich, he who is happy in what he has.
Right.
That's me.
Well, that was the one I was going to pick also, but it's interesting. I pick it most because there's a couple women in my life who say this so much about people in their lives. So it resonates because I keep hearing it over and over. So it's an interesting, I do like the party one too, I think. I like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm one of those people who keep saying this, who is rich, who he was happy in what he has. And I think I say it because so many people I know are not happy in what they have. And I can't even say that I am always happy in what I have. I have to remind myself a lot of times. It's very easy to, especially if you're a person who is always trying to accomplish things, if you're like a type A, what you really focus on is usually what you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Because you kind of want to fix that. So,
well, and honestly, we went through very, very tough financial times, and I just kept saying, my kids are happy and healthy and good people. How can I be sad? How can I not be grateful for this life? So yeah, we didn't take a vacation. It's okay.
Right. Yeah, I think kids are often the bottom line when they're happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody want to add anything? Okay, then we'll go on. This is interesting. This session usually falls around the time of Shavuot, and it will again. And one of the major themes of the holiday of Shavuot is the expression of gratitude. During the time of the temple, people would bring their first fruits to the temple in gratitude for the harvest. The Bikurim, or the first fruits that were brought to the temple, were the choicest fruits and represented the best of the results of the hard, dedicated work of the people in the fields. So upon bringing their first fruits, each person would recite the phrase, the blessing that we see here. And that in order to express gratitude for the harvest. But it's interesting, when we read it, you'll see that it's not just expressing gratitude. Who would like to read it?
I will.
Thank you.
My father was a fugitive or wandering Aramaean. He went down to Egypt with meager numbers and sojourned there. But there he became a great and very populous nation. The Egyptians dealt harshly with us and oppressed us. They imposed heavy labor upon us. We cried to the Eternal, the God of our fathers, and the Eternal heard our plea and saw our plight, our misery, and our oppression. The Eternal freed us from Egypt by a mighty hand, by an outstretched arm and an awesome power, and by signs and wonders. God brought us to this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Wherefore I now bring the first fruits of the soil, which you, O Eternal, have given me.
Right, so you see the verses present a pattern. They begin with recalling a hardship, wandering, few in number, slavery, oppression, and they end by recalling the positive change that followed the difficult period. You even said that, Lynn, about how you went through financial hard times.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I think, and when I was little, people would always say this to me, you have to experience the opposite in order to appreciate what you have.
Right.
And that's kind of what's going on here. In this way, the verses serve as a model for expressing gratitude. In order to be truly grateful, we can't forget that which we overcame in our lives. In our peak moments of triumph and our everyday moments of satisfaction, there's a need to express gratitude in order to truly appreciate that there's good in our lives. And another thing interesting, the fact that the verses recall both struggle as well as gratitude kind of serves as a reminder that expressing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring hardship. Israel, the people of Israel, would come to the temple owning their past as a product of a poor, marginalized, enslaved immigrant nation. And then they declare that despite that past, we were saved by God and blessed by God with the best fruits. We learn that gratitude doesn't mean ignoring that which is difficult in life. It means that despite the difficulties in our lives, we work to recognize and acknowledge the good in our lives. And these verses also teach us the value of being specific as we recount that which we're grateful for in our lives. Rather than speaking in broad and general statements, it's important to be specific and recount all the details in our lives that are worthy of our gratitude. So those are some of the things that we think about here. And we probably think about as we go through our days. I was thinking about, what am I usually grateful for? When do I express gratitude? A lot of times when I'm really afraid something terrible is going to happen and it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's similar to this, and that, I mean, I could wake up in the morning and say, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day. And in that case, I'm grateful for it. And I'm not thinking, oh my God, I thought it was going to rain. And but a lot of the really big things, it's kind of like, oh, I thought this terrible thing was going to happen and it didn't. Or, I'm really glad that this great thing happened because maybe it wasn't going to, or I had to put in a lot of effort to make it happen. And for those things, I think there's a different kind, like a more intense gratitude, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments here?
I think you said it.
Okay, great. This is really interesting. So before we go on with our Jewish text on gratitude, there's a secular belief about gratitude that comes from modern day research. These findings come out of an area called positive psychology, which is the study of mentally healthy people and what makes people happy. So in their findings, gratitude has been identified as the forgotten factor in happiness research. It's really interesting. It's almost, if you're not a spiritual person, this would convince you to study these gratitude texts. So you'll maybe take turns again?
Sure.
Thank you.
You want to start, Donna?
Sure.
Okay.
Gratitude interventions and psychological and physical well-being. In an experimental comparison, those who kept gratitude journals on a weekly basis exercised more regularly, reported fewer physical symptoms, felt better about their lives as a whole, and were more optimistic about the upcoming week compared to those who recorded hassles or neutral life events. A related benefit was observed in the realm of personal goal attainment. Participants who kept gratitude lists were more likely to have made progress toward important personal goals, academic, interpersonal, health-based, over a 2-month period compared to subjects in the other experimental conditions.
Well-being. Grateful people report higher levels of positive emotions, life satisfaction, vitality, optimism, and lower levels of depression and stress. The disposition towards gratitude appears to enhance pleasant feeling status more than it diminishes unpleasant emotions. Grateful people do not deny nor ignore the negative aspects of life.
Go ahead, Lynn. I had it too.
Okay. Spirituality. Those who regularly attend religious services and engage in religious activities such as prayer and reading religious materials score more likely to be grateful. Grateful people are more likely to acknowledge a belief in the interconnectedness of all life and a commitment to and responsibility to others. Gratitude does not require religious faith, but faith enhances the ability to be grateful.
So let's think about how these findings resonate with our earlier conversations around the gratitude quotes in the Deuteronomy text. So what do we find that's similar here? I think we find, my favorite quote, who is happy, who is content with what he has, that's definitely in here. I will say that after reading this, I decided I am definitely going to keep a gratitude journal and see how it goes. I think we should all try it, and we can come back next month and see what we thought. But it's very interesting. And I was reading this with my husband, and he said, well, which comes first, the gratitude or the
faith?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think from this topic, from what they say here, I think it's the gratitude. So let's all try it and see what happens next time.
All right.
Great. Okay, so now there's a couple of reflection things. Before we look at the rabbinic texts that we're going to look at in a moment, you can ask your group to just take 5 minutes to try their hand at expressing gratitude. Ask the participants to list as many things as they can think of that they're grateful for in their lives. So in this way, they can begin their list of 100 blessings that we talked about before. I usually begin this with a guided meditation. I tell them to close their eyes, think about the last 24 hours, beginning with where they were at this time yesterday and going all the way through waking up this morning and to this moment. And I ask them, what are you grateful for? How many specific items can you list? And, they think about it and then they write it down. And we're going to actually compare this list with another list after we do some gratitude study, which will be interesting. When I did this myself, I thought it was easy. And then I was thinking about, well, are these things I'm grateful for? Like, are they going to sound hokey to the rest of the group? But you don't have to read them out loud. I've done it both ways. When I've done it out loud, it spurs people on, and it's nice. And what I thought was hokey is not really any hokier than anybody else.
Right.
But it's your list.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I did this with the WRJ group. These women were astounding, and they were in a big room with 60 of them. So they would stand up and tell what they were grateful for. You'd be amazed how many breast cancer survivors there were that were sharing. And it was beautiful. And brought tears to your eyes. I'm happy I can see my grandchildren. I didn't think I'd live this long. Beautiful, beautiful things. So it can be really meaningful. And that would be a good thing to say. Okay, now we're ready to look at rabbinic understandings of gratitude. So in the text you see here, the rabbis express the idea that when we practice gratitude, we're able to see clearly how much good there is in their lives. The point is that to be grateful takes practice and effort. That's why I was saying you might practice being grateful before it really becomes part of you. So this thing about being healthier, it's entirely possible that you start like this and then you become healthier. By consciously practicing gratitude, we actually become grateful and are able to find positives in our life. Or people say, fake it till you make it. This practice provides us with a tool to help us balance our focus between the things we lack and the good we have. So as we read this text, let's think about how the rabbis express this idea.
The rabbis taught it is forbidden for a man to enjoy anything of this world without a benediction, a blessing. And if anyone enjoys anything of this world without a benediction, he commits sacrilege. Rabbi Judah said in the name of Samuel, to enjoy anything of this world without a benediction is like making personal use of things consecrated to heaven, since it says the earth is the eternal's and the fullness thereof. And Rabbi Levi contrasted the two texts. It is written, the earth is the eternal's and the fullness thereof. And it's also written, the heavens are the heavens of the eternal, but the earth hath God given to the children of me, from Psalms 115, 116. There is no contradiction. In the one case, it is before a blessing has been said, and in the other case, afterwards.
Right. So according to the text, it's wrong to enjoy the world without a blessing. It's like using something that doesn't belong to you without permission. I mean, if you've ever had somebody borrow something of yours without asking you first, that's kind of the experience. And probably your participants have experienced this at some time or another. Family members maybe borrowed things without asking. And what are some other instances of using something that doesn't belong to you without permission? And what do you think about this comparison? Is it valid? And why or why not? I think that we don't think about the earth as belonging to God. I think we think of it as belonging to us because we're not reminded very often about it. That's just not our culture. I mean, it's not the Jewish culture, but it's not the, if we were Hasidic maybe.
I feel like more and more we are reminded of it with global warming and all the crazy weather we've been. I feel like we are being reminded that we are really abusing a great privilege.
Yes, it's so funny that you said that because that's the next thing I was going to say. It was just Earth Day this week.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly. And if you look actually back into our Jewish texts, there is a lot of reminder of this. If you're looking for it, like even the second paragraph of the Ahavta, like it says, if you don't follow these rules, the earth won't give its bounty and there won't be the proper rain and stuff. And looking at it now, in light of today, that's very true. It's just we really have to sit back and think about what we're saying. So that's exactly what I was thinking about. The rabbis understood that in life there's no limit to what we don't have. He's stuck in a place where all we can see is endless dissatisfaction. But if we remind ourselves to be grateful, then we will appreciate what we have. And they're explaining here that before you express gratitude and acknowledge God, the world belongs to God. But once you express gratitude, it belongs to us as well. So we can relate this to our individual experience and to the world as a whole. And as we were saying, if we look through this through the lens of respect for the environment, it would help us. How could we be grateful to nature? How would that help the earth?
It helps you use it, it sustains it.
Exactly. So, I live on a sailboat. So we have tanks filled with water, but we have to refill them every time they become empty, which is like maybe once a week. It's not a big deal. But when I am taking a shower or washing the dishes, I'm more like an Israeli. I turn it off when I'm not using it because I know that I'm going to have to turn that hose back on.
Uh-huh.
And the same thing with fuel, because our heater is not it's not natural gas like we had in our house. It runs on diesel fuel. So in the winter, we turn it up pretty high because it's a small area and it doesn't take much to heat it at all. But we're still aware of what we're using. And I think it's interesting to be aware of what you're using. And I think it helps you to be grateful for what you have, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about also. And it's interesting that you brought that up because I was thinking it because of my experience, but you're thinking it just because you're thinking of it, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're going to look at the biblical origins of brachot. They're one of the tools Judaism gives us to express gratitude. And one way that brachot can help us to practice gratitude is they can help us slow down because, we're all really busy. They create stopping points as we move through our daily routine. And rather than just moving through the day, brachot serve us to stop and reflect on what we have. They're a way to express gratitude so that we don't move through life rushing without acknowledging what we have. And if you look at the Tanakh, for the brachot that we recite today, you won't find them. You'll find the beginnings of our modern day brachot. In the Bible, we read about the individuals who reacted to God's world by uttering great gratitude in a specific way. And these expressions of gratitude to God established the beginnings of the fixed pattern of bracha. So if you look at the ones that are in the Bible, here they're in the third person. And as we move from the Bible to what we recite today, the rabbinic brachot, you'll see that it goes from third person to second person. We say you, like blessed are you, and that changes the formula to a direct conversation between us and God. And one explanation for that change is that there was a desire to express a more intimate and personal relationship between humans and God. So we can look at the biblical occasions that are inspired brachot, and then the rabbinic brachot. I'm going to read, because my voice feels pretty good. Okay. So upon finding a wife for Isaac, Abraham's servant said a bracha, because he was just so happy. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, responded with a bracha when Moses told him about the miraculous events that Israel encountered on their journey from slavery to redemption. David expressed his gratitude to God for his son Solomon's succession to his throne. And I bet that's something all of us can identify with. When our kids graduate or have a bar mitzvah or something, that's a time we express our gratitude. Upon Ruth giving birth to a child, the Israelite women expressed their happiness to Naomi through a bracha to God. And then rabbinic brachot, for example, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Or, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who sanctifies us with commandments and commits us to kindle the light of the Sabbath. So these are rabbinic, and you see how we're talking directly to God. We're saying, thanks for our challah, or, we're so happy Shabbat is starting. And it's a more personal relationship. So the question to think about with your participants, does this prayer relate to the gratitude that you feel or you wish to relate on a daily basis? And one of the things I've thought of also is, brachot hanahanin, the brachot for just random things that we're grateful for. I can send out a link to some information about it, for seeing a rainbow, for smelling a good fruit, for seeing someone with a lot of knowledge, either secular knowledge or religious knowledge. There are prayers for these. And this could also inspire members of your group to write their own brachot. So that could be an interesting thing, just to reflect on that and think about that. So that's a nice thing. Something I've done with groups, I did this when I was doing it with a group of older people in assisted living. I put on the screen the Atzer Yashar prayer, which you'll see later, and I put some brachot hanahanin up, the blessings of appreciation, and we made a mobile. I gave each of them like a styrofoam, a fun foam shape, like one of those, and had them write either a blessing that they wanted from a siddur, or one of the ones that was up, or something of their own that they wanted to say as appreciation. And we hung them all. That was like our prayers coming together and going up. And they really enjoyed it. We hung it up in their common room, and they were all pointing out which one was theirs. And they were really beautiful. A lot of them had to do with their families, and it was just really nice. So that's something, if you feel like doing that, that could be a nice thing to do as well. This next one is a really interesting, this is more sources of gratitude from the siddur. Sorry about that. So this reminds us to articulate gratitude every day. And we're going to take a look at the very basic prayer that we say when we wake up in the morning, acknowledging God's compassion for restoring us to life every day. I can read this too, because I'm feeling good.
Okay.
Moda ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam shehachazarta bi nishmati b'chemra rabba emunatecha. I thank you, living and eternal ruler, for restoring my soul to me with compassion. You are faithful beyond measure. It's interesting. I don't know how many people wake up in the morning and didn't think they'd make it. So it's interesting that this was a classic prayer. It would be interesting to see with your participants if they feel and they express gratitude on a daily basis. So I had whooping cough this winter, and I did not sleep laying down for 3 weeks. I literally, if I laid down, I choked. There's nothing I could take. Even sitting up, I didn't make it through the night for like a long time. I'd always have to take medicine. I mean, it didn't even help. I had like Vicks Vapor Rub, and I had tea, and it was, so I look at this in a new way. But I think everyone can find something to be grateful for when they first wake up in the morning. And it's a much better way of waking up than waking up and saying, oh, I have to pay my bills, or I have to worry about whether my kid's going to make it to school on time, or, what other ever challenges you have. And it's nice to find something to be grateful for, not only waking up, which is very nice, but a lot of times I wake up in the morning and I'll think of, what do I have to do today? And something happy and inspirational is a great way to get out of bed as well. So that's.
Do you feel like this conversation is very similar to, how many was that, 2 months ago, or was it 2 months ago that we did? Can't think of the topic.
You're not the only one. Let's see, what did we do?
It was not mindfulness and conscious living.
Yes, it's very similar to that in certain ways, because conscious living, we also do prayer, because that's a way to be conscious of what's going on. So you're right, and actually in your discussion, you might want to bring that up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and see what your participants think. Like, is this building on it? Has anything that they discussed a couple months ago, like, seeped into their
lives? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and how does it relate to what we're discussing here? That's a great thought. Definitely. All right, so I really like the next story. It's really nice. It's an urban legend with a message. It might be real, it might not be. Does anyone feel like taking it over?
I'll go halfway.
Okay, go. Yep.
Urban legend with a message. There is a story, probably urban legend, but full of truth nonetheless, concerning the famous violinist Yitzhak Perlman. One evening, Perlman was in New York to give a concert. As a child, he had been stricken with polio, and so getting on stage was no small feat for him. He wears braces on both legs and walks with 2 crutches. Perlman labored across the stage slowly until he reached the chair in which he seated himself to play. As soon as he appeared on stage that night, the audience applauded and then waited respectfully as he made his way slowly across the stage to his chair. He took his seat, signaled to the conductor to begin, and began to play.
No sooner had he finished the first few bars than one of the strings on his violin snapped with gunshot-like force. At that point, Perlman was close enough to the beginning of the piece that it would have been reasonable to have brought the concert to a halt while he replaced the string to begin again. But that's not what he did. He waited a moment and then signaled the conductor to pick up just where they had left off. Perlman now had only 3 strings with which to play his soloist part. He was able to find some of the missing notes on adjoining strings, but where that wasn't possible, he had to rearrange the music on the spot in his head so that it all still held together. He played with passion and artistry, spontaneously rearranging the symphony right through to the end. When he finally rested his bow, the audience sat for a moment in stunned silence, and then they rose to their feet and cheered wildly. They knew they had been witness to an extraordinary display of human skill and ingenuity.
Perlman raised his bow to signal for quiet. You know, he said, it is the artist's task to make beautiful music with what you have left. We have to wonder, was he speaking of his violin strings or his crippled body? And is it true only for artists? We are all lacking something, and so we are challenged to answer the question. Do we have the attitude of making something of beauty out of what we have, incomplete as it may be? So that's a really interesting legend. And it leads us to the next activity, which is to go back to your gratitude list and think of how many things you can add since you've read these texts and discussed them. Give the participants another 5 minutes to add to the list. Push yourself to make what you've written even more specific. And then the Asher Yatzar prayer, which is here, which we'll read, has specific details recorded in the prayer. So push yourself to think of those parts in life that fill you with longing and emptiness, and find the nugget of gratitude that might be lurking underneath. So let's read the prayer.
Donna?
Yeah.
Praise are you, eternal our God, who rules the universe, fashioning the human body in wisdom, creating openings, arteries, glands, and organs, marvelous in structure, intricate in design. Should but one of them fail to function by being blocked or opened, it would be impossible to exist. Praise are you, Adonai, healer of all flesh, sustaining our bodies in wondrous ways. We gratefully acknowledge that you are Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors throughout all time. You are the rock of our lives, the shield of our salvation in every generation. We thank you and praise you for our lives that are in your hand, for our souls that are in your charge, for your miracles that daily attend us, and for your wonders and gifts that accompany us evening, morning, and noon. You are good, your mercy everlasting. You are compassionate, your kindness never ending. We have always placed our hope in you.
That's beautiful. So now your participants can take some time and they can write down their thoughts of what they're grateful for, and then ask them which was easier for you, the first 5 minutes when you started the list, or now after reading all of this, and why do you think you experienced it that way? And usually it's easier after you've thought about all the things you could be grateful for, but it would be interesting just to see. Oh, I'm sorry, Sandy had something, and I didn't read it because I didn't see it come up. She said she likes the 100 blessings and the last one. Although I don't actually formulate brachot each day, I do try to stop and recognize beauty and God and probably good things as I encounter them, even possibly, especially the small things. And I think that speaks for all of us. Thanks, Sandy. It's very true. And this relates to what we're doing right here. And another thing my group did, we picked a finite amount of time, like either a week until our next meeting or 1 month. We did it till our next meeting. And each day when we woke up or when we went to sleep, we added one more item to the list that we had started. And another thing we did, so we started our 100 blessings that way, but also we made a group gratitude journal. So I took one of those clear covers, put something inside it, and then everybody had a page of what they were grateful for. And it was in a binder, and it was very nice, and we shared it as a group, which is a nice thing to do. Okay, so we have some supplemental materials. Does anybody want to add a comment or anything before I do that? Okay, so there's some really interesting supplemental materials for this topic. There are 2 Eli talks on gratitude, and there's one about monkeys showing gratitude, which I thought was really fascinating. And we've also included an article that highlights our current obsession with always being happy. And expressing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring that there's pain and hardship in the world. It means making a daily effort to see that along with difficulty, there's good in life. We are so focused on being happy now. Psychiatrists give drugs to people who aren't happy all the time. And we have raised, on the whole, not every single one of us, I'm sure our kids are fine, but there's a generation of people who can't deal with not getting exactly what they want within a few minutes of when they want it. And that's not really happiness. I don't know what that is, but it's not happiness. So, and actually this post, it says actually psychologists argue that this preoccupation with happiness is actually making us less happy. Mm-hmm. We can't deal with our little minor things. I really love the one about the monkeys too, which is so interesting.
Steve and I picked out a book at the library, and Steve picked it up and started reading it. I haven't had a chance because he's been engrossed. His nose has been in the book. It's called The Happiness Effect. And he's in the other room getting... Steve, who's the author of the book, The Happiness Effect? Spell the last name? Donna Freitas, F-R-E-I-T-A-S. It's called The Happiness Effect, and it's a fascinating book talking about our cyber generation of children, Facebook, and who has more likes. And if you don't have as many likes as Joe Blow down the street, you're not happy. It is fascinating and a little scary, actually.
I'm going to put that in our follow-up email. I think people should take a look at that.
The Happiness Effect. Donna Freitas.
I wrote it down. That's very interesting. Very interesting. We definitely need to talk about that. And then the last thing to talk about is our personal reflections. You know, each source book includes questions on the back cover to help focus participants on their independent projects. So at the end of every session, it's nice to take a couple of minutes to look at the questions and either write their answers to them or write and then share them as a group, whichever works well. And these are pretty basic questions that relate to gratitude. For which of your independent projects do you feel most grateful and why? And can you express gratitude through any of your independent projects? Explain. So when I was doing the Musar version of gratitude, it was very much about paying it forward. And expressing gratitude through an independent project can be very much about paying it forward, doing something because of something you've experienced. For example, one of my friends has a daughter who had leukemia when she was 4. She's now like almost 30. And one of the things she does every year is she goes to a camp for children with cancer, and she volunteers her time because she's really grateful that, thank God, she survived. So there are things like that people might do because of a personal experience. Even, you know, it doesn't have to be something as big as that, but something that you feel grateful for, that you therefore do one of your independent projects about it. So any questions or comments?
No, I think this is a nice topic.
I do too. I found it very, very helpful and interesting to talk about. And just the things that come out are so interesting, the things people have done. And any of the different things that we can bring up here, like you were saying about the happiness effect, or the idea of a gratitude journal. Like there's so many different ways to take this that it can cover so many things. I think it's a really nice topic.
Me too.
Oh,
Thank you, Dina. Will you send the slide link, please?
yes, I will. I'm also going to put in the happiness effect. I'm also going to put in something relating to the blessings of appreciation. I'm writing this down so I don't forget. And I am also going to send, what else did I say I would send? I think that's it.
No, there was something else. I'm trying to remember.
Let's see.
I don't know. Maybe you'll think about it.
I will remember it. I will. I'll be grateful for my memory.
There you go.
We all need to be grateful for that.
For sure.
When we have it, right?
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I was just looking to see if I made a note on what you said, but I don't see it.
I will figure it out. I'll go back through my slides and
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.